the Countryside Podcasts with Chris Skinner.
Down through the field margin and onto a public right-of-way, which, Chris, you've told me in the past, this is Bodica Way, isn't it?
Yes, it's one of the new names for it. It was named about 25 years ago. It's actually one of the old public footpaths that run along the southern edge of Arminghall Wood, and in fact on the northern boundary of High Ash Farm, and then it goes right the way down the eastern side of High Ash Farm. And so we've got just short of 2 miles of public footpaths, and these are really different. So we're going to do a section this morning of our weekly podcast on public access into the countryside and all the different forms it takes. And footpaths have always been the sort of bane of farmers, because you couldn't sort of shout to people, get off my land, as farmers used to do, particularly in the 1970s, and it caused a lot of upset and angst because footpaths didn't always run along the edge of fields. Sometimes they went diagonally across, and each year farmers wanted to get their crops in and plough them. It wasn't too bad with cereals, apart from June and July when the cereals were at their height. But once we started growing crops like oilseed rape, it would be up 4, 5, 6 feet tall, and it would completely block the footpath as the crop lodged over the path, and people who had a legal right of way, and that's what public footpaths are, could actually sort of complain to the farmer and make them mow a strip through. And often when farmers ploughed over footpaths, if they were fairly good custodians of the countryside, which many weren't, you would actually run the tractor wheel up a couple of times and make a new track for people to walk over. I'll just grab Rat. We've got some military planes going over the top of us.
Fair public right-of-way up there in the heavens. So it's a nice November morning. The sun's coming out now. It's quite breezy as well. So mild still.
Yes, it's unusual. We've had a little bit of rain, but we're still very much drought-stricken. We've been able to drive up in the pickup truck to this portion of the farm.
The leaves are all down now, or coming down, aren't
and
they?
The last of the acorns are just visible before the jays take them off and cache them, in the hope that they'll have some winter food. But these footpaths are now hugely important. This one got completely neglected, although it is a public right-of-way, and it overgrew completely. And there are associations around the UK which join volunteers together to keep footpaths open, and this particular one was helped to be opened by the Ramblers Association, and they cut a small track through. There's blackthorn and hawthorn growing each side of the footpaths as we look up there. It's a really important public right of way, and what happened is it just allowed me to get in with the tractor, and I spent about 4 months in here, 16 weeks in total, just clearing it, and I've made it into a sort of road width of sort of public highway. Somebody's just walking past, morning, with 2 very large dogs, which Rat is itching to... Well, he's a modern day farmer, and he's sort of like to say, get off my land, because he's regarded this as his territory. I can let him down now, off my land. Yes, he's seeing one of the many walkers on the farm. So as a former sort of, the Norfolk mottos do different, and public footpaths were always a problem here on the farm, having that distance running through arable fields and around the edge of fields on the farm. And in 2006 I was offered a stewardship scheme, and within that, one of the, what we call the prospectus for the scheme, there were provisions for public access, something called permissive access. And I scratched my head and read all the details, and it meant creating 7 miles of new public access all around the farm. So that in a total made just short of 9 miles. And I thought, well, how's this going to work? It meant there was a very small payment to go with the access, and I couldn't see how it would work comfortably. Anyway, I agreed to do the whole scheme with all the different provisions for public access, for tree planting, hedgerow planting, and so I accepted the whole scheme, lock, stock and barrel, and gritted my teeth and put the public access, permissive access signs in. And what we'll do in a minute, we'll drive off to one of the permissive walks and just see what the difference is.
Right,
But-
so this, as we said, is a public right of
Yes,
way
it
by
is.
statutes.
Yep,
There's
exactly.
nothing, if you didn't want it, there's nothing you could do about this.
No, it's not a bridle way, it's on high ash land, and it's really wide. It's a very old ancient road, and once you do a little bit of research, you start to respect why all these public footpaths are there. They were really for the farm workers to come to work, and many of them go to different farms. They're dotted and lined up, and this one behind us heads off into Lakenham and Norwich, and farm workers would actually walk 2 miles to come to High Ash Farm from the outskirts of Norwich, and start off at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it's unbelievable. So they're a really important part of history. This particular one was so well used that further up the hill from where we're sitting, and it's actually been metalled, not with tarmac, but with flints laid side by side next to each other. So it's hugely impressive. So instead of sort of shouting, "Get off my land," which you're very tempted to do as a productive farmer, Rat's just come back to join us here. Keep still on my lap. And you're very tempted to do that, but I thought I'm going to make a problem into an asset for the farm. So what we'll now do is hop in the truck and find out how I've done it, because it was quite a brain tester, and it has been successful. To be honest, it's now the most important part of the farm for public access, education, people walking. But the first thing you have to do, if you're a farmer and you're considering diversification, is to actually look and see where your farm is. So as we drive back, we can look back northwards and see we're right on the edge of a really large centre of population, which is Norwich, my hometown, and that's the key to the success of this particular form of diversification. Public access, permissive access. Most farmers will either stop listening to this podcast immediately or pull their hair out and say, that's not a good thing to do, and I'm going to prove you wrong.
Not only do you encourage people to walk these days, you also put benches for them to have a sit down and bide a while.
Yes, exactly.
That's where we're sitting at
This
the
is a
moment.
lovely oak tree that fell down about 12 years ago. It's solid oak. Some of the seats are giants. This one's about 8 feet long, and somebody has just decided to sponsor this particular seat. So in a week's time, there'll be a brass plaque just here. I think somebody's husband has passed away, and they loved walking on these public footpaths, and so this seat has now been sponsored, and of course that's a form of diversification. It's bringing a very small amount of money into farms which need really refinancing to keep them going. Sort of commodity prices for crops, be it chickens, cereals, milk, they're at rock bottom prices in terms of the production, the value from the production that you get from outputs on the farm. So input prices are going up, the costs in other words, and output prices are static to going down. So it's a really tough conundrum, and that's why I've decided to diversify as in many ways as I possibly can, and it's proving a bit of a head scratcher, but a success. Thumbs up from Skinner. Come on, let's go to the next spot.
We've come virtually to the other side of the farm now, and we're fairly close to where the walkers congregate when they
Yes.
come to the farm, which is a car park which is always full on a morning, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's full, particularly at weekends, and unbelievably successful. It holds about 20 cars. It's free to park here, and we're one of the high spots. So we've come from Arminghall. We're actually in Stoke Holy Cross at this point. We've left Caister sandwiched in the middle, and we're on one of the permissive walks, which is the part of the scheme, one of the prescriptions that I took up in the stewardship scheme that I did. And it started in 2006, inviting public onto the farm, which is a really challenging thing to do. And it finished in 2016. And around about that time, the government stopped permissive walking as part of the options that farmers could take up. They didn't deem it was really good value for public money to have public access. And at this point in time, we've just got 2 walkers. It's fairly early morning.
Morning.
Morning. Hello. Hello. Just walking past us and sort of going to do one of the squares around the farm. It's all sort of done into squares. The permissive access, as I said, there's now a total of 7.5 miles, and there's one further form of public access which we'll visit in a minute. Anyway, if we just walk on a bit further, you can see the second of the 20 or so seats that are out on the farm, and this one's the latest one I've put in, quite close to where the car park is. We're beside Chandler Road and Wash Lane. There's a little junction of 2 or 3 roads here.
Lovely solid seat this, isn't it? Out of another old oak tree.
Yeah, it's an oak tree that fell down in one of the recent gales. Probably no timber value in it because there's a few faults in it. And what I do, I cut the top off it. It's quite a diameter. It's about 2'6" diameter, nearly 3 feet in places. So I cut the whole top off it, and then the bit that comes off the top, I put as legs on the end and fix it with big sort of diamond pins here, all riveted in, which I love doing in the workshop. There they are, 4 pins right through into the seat itself, and it will be here 10 or 15 or 20 years, and it's not been here a week yet. So no timber value in it. It is good as firewood, but to have a seat like this is quite something, and it's available at the back there for somebody to come and sponsor it. So Rat's having a little dig. Anyway, if I just brush a few of the leaves off, you can sit there.
It's on a high point, so the view, let me turn around, is magnificent.
Yes, so you've got the hills and valleys of the farm. The farm still extends behind us further into Stoke Holy Cross, but you get an idea of the panorama of the farm. So it's a really lovely place to sit. You can sit and have a picnic here, or you can just watch the wildlife, or just sort of leave the troubles and the cares of this world right behind you and sort of try and link into the countryside, and it's something really therapeutic about it. So the permissive walks, and this one goes right in front of where we're sitting, they're all very wide indeed. They're not like the normal public footpaths you'd come across where you got to sort of squeeze sideways. They're nearly all 20 feet wide, and some of them down in the valley there are 20 metres wide, and we'll visit some of those in a minute, which is 60 feet. Looks excessive, but not. Just look coming up the hill. And this isn't sort of said, this is just a normal morning, a weekday morning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people just coming up the hill, 2 groups there, just enjoying the countryside, and for health and education, it's a real winner.
And you have societies come here as well as the individual walkers.
Yes.
People just come to walk their dog,
Yes.
but also people who get together.
Everybody comes for a different reason. We've had proposals here, we've had people meeting and getting married because of the dog walking here. It's very social. Everybody comes for a different reason. Some people to be with their partner, some people to get away from their partner. You do have to laugh. And some people, there's one in the valley there, it's a very special seat. It's right by one of the streams which flow through the valley there. And you can sit there, and behind you is a little waterfall. The water drops down like 3 to 4 feet. And so it's a constant sound of trickling water, and that's my little cancer seat for anybody who's had a problem with their health, in particular cancer. When you get the diagnosis and you've had the treatment and you're feeling really poorly, and it's quite well known about, and people will come and sit there and just listen, and it's quite therapeutic when you're not feeling 100% or very depressed because of the diagnosis. So there's lots of different reasons. So the permissive walking finished in 2016 at the end of the stewardship scheme, and Daniel, my son, decided that we should try and keep it going because we'd established all these walks around the edges of the fields. We were still in the early part of the scheme producing agricultural produce, and the funny thing is when we took all the headlands out for the permissive walking, the yields actually went up per hectare, and I had to scratch my head about that one because a lot of the crops were growing near hedgerows or near woodland, and people could walk either through the woodland or around the edges, and it did away. It allowed the rabbits to come out and feed on the grass margins and not on the crops, and so the combines didn't have to go near the trees or anything, and eventually commodity production ceased completely, and it all went down to wildflowers and pollen and nectar fields, overwinter wild bird seed cover, hedge planting, new woodlands all over the farm. So there's 4 areas of new woodland. We're looking down in the valley at young Scots pine and your oaks and sweet chestnut, all self-seeded, and there's 2 hectares there. That's our successional area of woodland, and that is absolutely delightful.
That was just an arable field when I first used to come visit here.
It certainly was. The amount of times I've ploughed that and cultivated it, grown sugar beet on it, and now it's quite well established because it's just coming up to 20 years old now. It's been there. No planting by humans has been done at all. It's all courtesy of the local jays. Perhaps squirrels have had a hand in it, but the coniferous trees, which you can see out in the middle, the seed is blown over from those clumps of Scots pine we can see in the distance right over the top of those big oak trees and landed out there. It's feather-light seed, and yet Scots pine are quite substantial trees, and they're self-seeded out there, and they are absolutely delightful. And that's what everybody comes to walk and to see. You can see the future of young trees, older trees in the background, and you get a picture of the countryside. It's very like humanity, you know. It's all different ages and conditions. Some of the trees have got branches missing off them, and you can sort of link into the countryside in a very simple way to start with. So lots of people just standing at the top near the car park, actually a group of people doing exercises there now. So that's one of the many uses of the countryside, but it's turned into hugely pleasurable for me. We mow the tracks and so make sure they're really in good condition to walk on. And it's just a delightful way of visiting the countryside.
Well, it's a balm for the soul, isn't it? The
Yes.
fresh air, the sight of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's scientifically proven that
Yes.
if you spend an hour in the countryside, you will be doing yourself some good.
Yes, yeah, that's why
That's why you're 158, isn't it?
Yeah, I look 158. Yes, steady on, Gudgeon.
Look at this hole that Rat has dug here.
Yes, he's underneath the seat, everybody. He's been digging. His feet are now covered in soil, which when we get back in the truck, I'm going to have a dry cleaning bill. And right, I'm just going to grab him because 2 dogs are coming past in a moment, and he's already eyed those up. I can hear a sort of volcanic eruption from deep down. It's a kind of collie, and I don't know what the other breed is. They're a couple of sort of very happy-looking dogs. Morning. Hello.
99.9% of dogs here are on their leads, aren't they?
Yes, the 0.9, it's always the exception that proves the rule. Well, this is his territory, but he is very well behaved, except when he's not well behaved, which was just now.
Well, he lives here, doesn't he? So he's allowed not to be on the lead.
he's-
But what I'm saying is most dog walkers do obey your
No,
rule.
look at this coming up the hill, a lady with 2 black Labradors and a sausage dog by the look of it.
In a very smart red coat. Are you jealous of that rat?
Yes, look at that, a coated dog. He cannot wear a coat because he's intent on going down rabbit holes, and even worse, he goes into the badger set, and there'll be roots down there, so he could get caught in his collar or his jacket, and because I think the world of him, he's protected by not having the luxury of a coat on. But you can see it's a hive of activity. So how does it work financially? Well, we'll go to our next spot, which is the sponsor walk, which is still permissive access, but it's one that you can actually sponsor yourself if you want to, and we'll see how that works, and then I'll put it all together like a kind of huge jigsaw puzzle all over the farm, which is exactly what it is. So there we are, public footpath, permissive walking, and now permissive access, which is the third leg of the access to High Ash Farm and many places out in the countryside. So here we go.
We've come another half mile. We're on top of a hill here. Fine view of the farm, and Chris has got out of the pickup and he's pacing across this very broad path.
It's 20 metres. There we are, that's the width. So it's wider than a lot of the public roads out in the Norfolk countryside. And this is our third method of accessing the farm here and the countryside. And this is called a sponsor route. And really, we don't ask for any payments on any of the walking here. It's all for free. The car parking here is free as well, but we ask for the extra special walking, and there's 2 miles of sponsor routes, so it takes us over 9 miles of access here at the farm. We ask for donations. So it's completely optional, and we don't police the sponsor walks, but we rely on people to be honest, so there's no policing. The signage is crucial, so at the beginning and end of each of the sponsor walk it says sponsors route only, and then you get access to even more countryside. It's just as interesting and beautiful as the remainder of it. We've now come across the valley here. There's another seat here. This one has been sponsored. This is made from an old fallen ash tree. It's been here about 2 years now, and it's in loving memory of Kerry Dade as well. So beautiful brass plaque there, and you can sit here, particularly during the summer months or really any month of the year, and enjoy a completely different aspect of the countryside. The hills here, all the different colours at this time of the year, field maple down in the valley, sort of almost luminous, hawthorn down there as well, nearly lost all its leaves. Some oaks there, beautiful sort of golden colour, and some of the mature oaks that have been there hundreds of years, a little bit further along the valley there. Again, a really wide public access route, the normal permissive access right through the middle, and that's an old Roman road. So again, you come across this history, and it runs right the way through to Braden and Caister by Yarmouth, and we're Caister St Edmund here, and the Roman capital is just behind us in the bottom end of the village here. So a completely different access. So how it works is the sponsors, as I said, it was Daniel's idea that we keep these walks open after the official closing of permissive access nationwide as one of the options that you farmers could take up if you did stewardship. That's all finished now, and my son's idea made me scratch my head and said, well, we'll keep them open and just ask for donations. I must admit, I kind of laughed in his face because I put signs up saying, please become a sponsor, because this is now an unfunded facility, and the signs are still there. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, we got a postal order. It was £2.50. And because the cost, we worked out it was about £3,000 a year to sacrifice the land and to keep it mown and in good condition. And the seats are always free, which I love making anyway.
And you have to look after the trees as well.
Yes,
You've got so many trees here, but they could be a risk.
They certainly are, so I have to carry out a bit of health and safety. Bridges, we've just put a new bridge in because each side of the bridge there was a very deep ditch, probably 7-8 feet deep, and people were walking up to the edge of it. It had been flooded once or twice and became unsafe, so I carried out a bit of a health and safety sort of issue with it and decided to put a whole new bridge in, and that was quite expensive. So it isn't a facility without costs, so you are reliant on people actually contributing it to make sure it's successful and expand it. We can do even more walking here. We can go up to 12 miles quite comfortably, and so it depends how successful it is. After about a month of the scheme running, another envelope came in, and this time it was a cheque for £10. And I thought, well, this isn't just going to work. And so I think it had been going perhaps 6 weeks, the scheme, and another envelope came into the farm. I sort of thrust it back at my son and said, right, you might get a McDonald's or a coffee out of this one, if you're lucky. And he opened the envelope and there was a cheque for £500 in it. And after that, I had to eat humble pie. And so the sponsors at the moment who make donations for the upkeep of the walking, people are very, very appreciative of it. Some of the groups make a sort of joint contribution because you have groups of people walking around. We have one group here who appreciate these hills, and they're called the Fatties, and to qualify you have to be 100 kilos, which is about 16 stone, and they have been so successful that they have lost 3.5 of their members in lost weight. So they've lost 350 kilos in the group of 14 people.
Through walking up and down
walking all
yeah.
around the farm here. Just absolutely extraordinary.
That's fantastic. We were talking about people's mental well-being
Yes.
earlier, but physical as well.
Yes, so it covers 2 or 3 different areas, and that's why when we were walking, wherever I look, so farmers will pull their hair out and say, well, what about the wildlife? And do you know what? I have to eat humble pie again because I was fearful. We have hares here, we have dogs on lead rules, so there are signs to say where you can't walk, so everything is signed, but very discreetly. We're sitting with beside one of the spurs on this sponsor route, and there's 2 little signs, only about 4 inches by 4 inches, saying no walking. So some of the areas we have horse riding excluded just for horses, because some of the horses, people do actually like riding past people as long as they sort of behave and don't throw their arms around. If you're on top of a horse, you're always a little bit vulnerable, and the same as on the roadways. So there's virtually no riding on public highways here at the farm. It's all on these walks, and so you can actually let the riding out on a day permit basis. So Daniel's idea of the sponsorship by donations to upkeep the walks has been really successful, and it's yet just another way of bringing in, albeit a small income, into the farm. Nevertheless, it actually mounts up all the little details that you can do. So health-wise as well, it's really important for people, particularly as you get a bit on in years. People seem to be spending more of their life almost in a retirement, or before you actually start working, and then you work for your working life, and then the retirement period sets in. 60 years old for some people, if you've done successfully in your business. 65 or 67 years old is quite common now, and that can leave 20 or 30 years of sort of retirement to enjoy life. And we're finding more and more people walking here who are really still fit and healthy, and just enjoying the latter part of their life as well. So the permissive walking near Norwich, we can turn around and see the city behind us, only 1.5 miles away. So there's a big reservoir of people to come and enjoy the countryside. So there we are, a little bit of a different podcast, but it's a way of coming into the countryside and also enjoying the wildlife, which I've had to eat my hat. I've explained the wildlife has exploded. You obviously can't be running a public shoot here, every Saturday and running guns through the woodland.
Well, you wouldn't anyway, would you?
No, not now. No, I've sort of turned turtle on that one, and and it's perhaps one of the best things that I've done. And you get the thumbs up from people, and they absolutely love walking here for all the different reasons that people walk in the countryside. So it's amusing and very entertaining. And of course, it can be very lonely on modern farms. The labour just isn't there anymore. The labour's there, but it's maybe working in tractor factories and all the different backups that farmers have behind them. But at the end of the day, on the work face, which is what arable farms like this one is, it can be quite a lonely existence of long hours, often unsocial as well, whether it's a livestock unit or an arable unit, and it's time to ring the changes. But bearing in mind that land is a hugely important asset, and I never forget for a moment the fact that I'm a professional food producer. It's still there in my bones and in my blood, and if we're called to bring all this back into production, then that's the way it has to be.
Rat's making friends with the horses. And Chris, you've been looking through the glasses there. What have you seen?
Matthew, there's some herring gulls out in the middle of the pasture, quite a distance from us. I used the binoculars and I was watching one for a moment or two, and it was standing still and it was paddling its feet up and down, just patting the ground. And I thought, what on earth is it doing? And then after a few seconds, it just bent down and pulled a worm out of the ground and carried on paddling up and down with its feet quite quickly. And it was fishing for worms by vibrating the soil with its feet.
So it's like a worm charmer.
Absolutely. In fact, there is a worm charming competition still run in the UK. You couldn't make it up. Rat, would you be quiet? And I'm just watching it. It's standing still out in the middle, and its feet are going up and down as quickly as you sort of almost tapping the soil and charming the words up, the worms up.
Swallows flying into one of the large barns at High Ash Farm, feeding their young. This is one of the big conservation success stories I know you're very proud of.
Just brings a huge delight. 4 youngsters just waiting for mum and dad.
The podcast aims to bring you sights and sounds like this every week, and we're very thankful of your support. So any donations or subscriptions are very welcome indeed.
All we need is a little bit of extra help. It just keeps it going from week to week.
Monthly or one-off subscriptions, whatever the size. And the website, highashfarm.com/podcast.
6 youngsters right above our head, all with their gates wide open.
Well, that's wonderful to see. Something else, something for the season really, is the migratory birds, and you've spotted quite a few fieldfare, haven't you?
Yes, we've been flying over for about 2 weeks now. Had an enormous amount of flocks of fieldfares coming right across the farm here. 3 or 4 flocks every day for about 2 weeks now, varying in numbers from about 12 to close on 100. Loose flocks flying over, coming in from Western Europe, right across the top of the farm. The sea, the east coast of the UK, is only about 20 miles from where we're standing, and so they've come across the North Sea, probably took off the previous evening. The wind's been favourable for them. It's coming in from the southwest and later from the south this morning, and they come right over the top of the farm, and they are kind of don't be able to stop flying. They've got the migratory instinct, or the whatever instinct has inhabited them, and they just come straight across. Occasionally a flock will land on the farm here, and they'll feed for half an hour, very tetchy on the ground. Many of them will never have seen a human being before, and then they carry on flying westwards, and they'll go right across to Herefordshire and the more sort of pastoral regions of western UK and feed there. And then later on in the winter, once it starts to warm up again, once we've got through the really cold weather, January, February time onwards, they'll come all the way back again, and then they'll often stop on the farm and feed before they do the migration across the North Sea and then head up into northern Europe. So quite hostile conditions where they go, and they've obviously run out of food. There's been already some cold weather in central and northern Europe, so it's not surprising to see them coming across. So cold weather always causes these large amounts of bird movement.
Look out for the fieldfare and all the other migratory birds that come round at different times. Now, if you would like to send an email and ask Chris a question, maybe something that's been brought up in this week's podcast, there is an email address, but general comments and questions welcome as well. The address, chris@highashfarm.com. And Natasha and Brian have sent an email with some photographs of antlers, but when you look at the scale of them, it's about the size of one of those smartphones there that's pictured in the photograph. And Natasha and Brian say, I wonder if you could help identify and give some insight into these antlers and a track that we found while walking in a wood near our cottage in Abergavenny, lovely part of Wales. Our little dog found one on the way up. We couldn't believe our luck when she completed the pair by finding the other on the way down. We had to persuade her to give the second one up. Thankfully, she didn't chew it. All these badly behaved dogs.
Absolutely amazing. And so I've been asked to identify them, and I had not the slightst problem at all, because it's so obvious that they're one of our native deer species. They actually come from the roe deer and roebucks, and they've sent a photograph of the indent, which is called a slot, and then at the back of the little footprint there are two tiny little holes where the dew claws have actually gone into the ground. It only really happens on very wet soil, and that helps to identify it, but having the mobile phone in the photograph actually helps. Now, there's a little bit of a mystery with these because they've been freshly shed, and deer grow antlers starting in about April, May, and to start with they'll have velvet on them, and once that happens and the antlers are fully formed, the deer start to get very irritated by their antlers with this velvet on, and they will fray trees to try and rub the velvet off, and so you just have then these sharp antlers. Now, the only interesting bit there's a slight mistake in the photograph, because the left antler is actually the right one in the photograph, and the right antler is the left-hand one on the deer.
So these little branches here,
yes,
they should be pointing out.
They point outwards, yes, they're called medial points, halfway up in other words, and so that's the unusual portion, that the deer has shed the antlers now, this early in the season. Now, if we ask a few questions about why that's happened, roe deer, this is their mating season, their rut. And if you have two roebuck together, they put their heads down and fight with their antlers. And this particular deer, for some unfortunate reason, has lost both his antlers. But they're very distinctive, and without a doubt, with the 3 points on them, and the medial point halfway up, with a little attachment at the bottom, you can actually see where it came off the skull. But don't worry, they will grow again next year. You have these kind of little buds on the top which form in late March, early April, and then the antlers come through from there. They have a blood supply, and then the blood supply gets cut off and they harden and become very bone-like, and you can actually see the last part of the growth tip on the antler, which has got the white on it, and that's also where they'll fray the trees, so a bit of a nuisance really. There we are, but really lovely pictures and very descriptive of the size when you've got the mobile phone beside the picture for scale. Helps a lot.
Greetings to you in Abergavenny, all
Yeah.
the way to the west, when we're all the way to the east.
Yes, beautiful. And they've got the River Usk there, and very close to the Brecon Beacons in that particular area. Very beautiful part of the United Kingdom.
As is Norfolk. Rebecca in Tittleshall has sent a note. I really love seeing the change in the seasons, Chris, and have recently been enjoying all that autumn has to offer. My children and I are always fascinated by the different species of fungi that we see at this time of year and love to look for them on our walks. We're by no means experts, but have learned a great deal since listening to your podcast. My daughter Lily and I recently saw this, and we've gotten a photograph. It was in the leaf litter at the forest school that we attend in Attleborough, and wondered what it might be. I assume it's a type of fungi, but have never seen it before, and the forest school staff were also not sure what it could be. It reminds me a little of scrambled egg.
Yes, let's have a look at the picture, and you're quite right.
Well, someone's just spilt their sandwich on the floor, hasn't they?
That's what it looks like, doesn't it? It's an amazing photograph. To describe it, it's kind of looks like white scrambled egg with sort of little bits of brown in it. It's on leaf litter and general woodland debris. I can see sycamore seeds there on the ground, which is good source of nutrition for it. Now, this is quite interesting, this one, because it's not a fungi. It was thought as a kind of, years ago, as a bizarre form of fungi. Unfortunately, it's not got a very exciting common name. It's called a slime mould. I mean, children will love it. What a wonderful name to call the species.
So it's not a mushroom fungi, it's a mould.
Yes, it's got its own family group. It's been redesignated, it's been removed from the fungi family, and it's called a protozoa now. So that's the family you need to look into, and there's at least a dozen of them, these species of slime moulds, which grow here at the farm. Some of them are bright yellow, almost luminescent. Some of them are pink, some are orange, and you'll often find them particularly at this time of the year. So it starts off as a microscopic single cell, and that will feed on the woodland debris. I tell you one of its favourite habitats, it's wood chip. If you either make a path or you use wood chip on your garden as a mulch, this is the fungi. I was going to call it a fungi. This is the mould that inhabits it, and you'll see this kind of white streaking on the ground, and that's what it is. Then it starts to reproduce and gets larger and larger, and it's got a little trick up its sleeve. Once it forms quite a big clump, which you can see here, it actually starts to move. It finishes eating and feeding on the substrate it's growing on, and it moves to a new one. So that although they don't,
this is mould, that slime that moves.
Exactly.
It's just exactly like Edgar Allan Poe, isn't it?
Exactly, which is why children will love it. There's always so much to learn. It has got a scientific name. It's called Fligo candida. There we are. And it was always thought just as a really bizarre or unusual species of fungus, but it's not. It's a protozoa. And there we are. Just love it to bits. What a wonderful question, and wonderful pictures as well, so I could identify it straight away for you. So there you are at the forest school. You've got Fligo candida in profusion all around the school. A slime mould. I love it.
Aren't they a wonderful thing, these forest schools? They're popping up everywhere now.
Yes.
I expect it, if you had your time again, you'd have rather liked to have gone to
Well,
one of
I'd
those.
have gone to school and he wouldn't have got me back out of school, whereas it was the other way round. Skinner, the blackboard is in the classroom, not outside the window, was said to me more times than I can tell you.
Chris is jealous of you, Lily. So enjoy your time at the forest school, and thanks, Rebecca in Tittleshall there. with the wonderful question about slime mould. If you've got any moulds or fungi that you want Chris to talk about, send us an email, or maybe you've seen some of the migratory bird species that are of interest at this time of the year, or maybe a gull that's dancing in the middle of a field to charm a worm. We'd love to hear from everyone about their sightings as they go around the countryside, all around the country, and all you've got to do is send an email, and that address is chris@highashfarm.com. Wow, busy time.
You're telling me we're surrounded by horses on the other side of the permissive walk here, and it's entertaining Rat, who's steamed the inside of the window up on the truck. He's been locked in so he doesn't cause any more problems.
We'll see you next week then.
Yeah, can't wait.